Hello and welcome to part 3 of our child's dress tutorial. In this tutorial we will be completing a pair of panties or diaper cover for children up to about 18 months old. Now I wanted to tell you the sample that I have made here. This is for the newborn. My measurements that I'm giving are approximate, so I encourage you to make sure that you double check, if possible, for the amount of rows that I suggest, to make sure the length and the width is proper. The materials that we'll be using for this, we will need some tools first. Our tape measure, some stitch markers, tapestry needle, our G 4.00 millimeter crochet hook. I have a pair of scissors, a pencil or a pen, and some paper. The yarn that we will continue to use, as you can see, my skein is almost gone. This was a 1-pounder. This is a Bernat Baby Sport. The size of this yarn, for those that are just making the panties, is a size 3, and the color is called baby yellow. The other color that I am using is the coral color of the same type of yarn. Say hello to Elsa. Elsa is going to show you where we will measure for our hips on our child when taking or using the measurements that I'm going to be giving you. Also remember too that the hip measurement is okay, because this will stretch just a little bit to go over any diapers. So I wanted to show you where the hip placement was. For Elsa, she has an 18-inch hip size, so I will be using the measurements for 18 inches. I came up with a chart of how to make the various sizes from newborn to 18 months. But all of them are going to be according to the hip size. Now the hip size I got was from a regular baby clothing chart that gave an approximate size of the hips for children up to age 18 months. After I figured out how many chains would be good for their waist area, I also came up with how many rows that will be needed to go down to the hip area. When we do the centers, I have measurements here, and the leg on the separation of the centers, how many stitches in between. To kind of break it down, I'll give you what you need here in just a second. I'll bring it up close so you can read it better. To break it down, we will start with the waist ribbing, and then our top rows. You'll notice here I have top rows. It says how many rows that we need to do. So to show you here, I have my ribbing, and then here's my top rows. In this one I did 4 for this newborn size, and then you can see, I'm going to flip it over. We're not going to seal it off this way. I was doing this as a practice to make sure it's right, but it shows up nicely in the video to show you where the center is going to start. And you'll notice that we have our 3 stitches here on this side and 3 stitches here, which gives the total of 6 that we need to separate from the centers. So if I opened it this way, the center starts here and the center starts here, and here's my 6 stitches. But we will go over this through each one of the steps. Okay, and so I drew my little picture out here. Here's the center. We're going to be learning how to decrease, and then this will be the lower, the bottom area where we will do our stitching at. So you're going to find this to be pretty quick, pretty simple. So let me give you your chart up close here. If you need to pause the video to write down what you need, I encourage you to write down the hip size, how many chains, this will be for the waist area, your top rows, how many rows, the centers, this is how many stitches you will start off with, and then the legs, how many you will skip. So for 0 to 3 months, 14-inch hip size, chain of 42. Okay, so let's see, if you need to screenshot it, please do that. Okay, and let's see what else I got down here at the bottom. Oh yeah, so in the leg, I'll show you, we're going to do 2 rows of ribbing, and then we're going to finish with the same detail as we did on the neckline and the sleeves of 2 single crochets and the Picot, which is a chain 2. So for my doll Elsa, I wrote down here she's got an 18-inch hip size. Okay, now if she did wear a diaper, it will stretch a little bit. Let me show you. You see how it will stretch just a little bit, and it'll be enough to snug up on the children. This does not use a lot of yarn, and it goes pretty quick. Alright, so I hope you all have written the information down. Choose which one you want with, whichever chain you need to start off with. Your top rows, how many rows you'll need. Your centers, how many you'll start off with, and leg, the separations. Okay, let's begin our tutorial. So to begin our little panties, we're going to start with yellow. I am making the ribbing at the waistline the same coloring as our little dress. So let's start with the yellow. I'm going to place a slip knot on my hook. Now before we start our chains, let's go over and refresh. Whichever hip size you're choosing is determining how many chains you're going to make. Now the size that I am making is the 9 to 12 month size for 18-inch hips. So I am going to chain 56. As before, whichever one you're going to chain that exact number. So continue on with your chaining. Here's one, yarn over through the hole, yarn over through the hole. Okay, keep chaining until you get the number you need. Pause your video and I'll see you in a second. At the end of the chain amount that you need, just go ahead and make sure that our chain does not have a twist in it. When you get to the end, you want to take that end and bring it around and place the hook right there in that very first chain that you made. Okay? Bring the 2 loops together, yarn over and through both of those. That's our slip stitch to bring it closed. Now look at your ring. Let's see, mine twists a little here. There we go. Okay, so my ring is straight all the way around. And then we're going to chain 2. 1, 2. Now this chain 2 does count as a stitch, so this would be considered stitch number 1. but in the count of our actual stitches, we're going to count differently. So back to our sheet. For mine, I'm doing 56. So I'm going to be doing 55 half double crochets around. 56 would be the chain 2. Okay, so for example, if you have 42, you will do 41 half double crochets around, and that chain 2 will be 42. The same with the other ones. Okay? So in our first stitch, now you notice that this one we picked up, so we want to go into this stitch next. Okay, this loop has the slip stitch right here. So we're going to make a half double crochet. So to do that, place your finger on the loop that's on your hook, yarn over. I pick up 2 parts of the chain because you'll notice that there's 3. Go ahead and bring it in, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, and all through 3. There you go. Okay, now the second one, you'll notice that the chain is spread out a little bit more. You can see 1, 2, and 3. Let's go ahead, yarn over and through 2 of those. So we only have 1 part of the chain left. Okay. Do the needed amount of half double crochets all the way around. When you get to this one right here, notice that this one is part of the chain. Count to make sure that you have the number you need. Count starting number 1 as on the chain 2. So we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, when you get to the other side and you have the right number, go ahead and stop your video and I'll show you how to finish this row off. So how did you do? Make sure you count and that you have the correct number all the way around. Remember, the chain 2 starts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, so to finish this row, we're going to count up to the second chain to the top of it, and I'm going to pick up 2 parts of that chain. Now for those that are keeping the same color, go ahead and do a slip stitch. I am changing colors for my next row. This will also help you to see how this row is completed a lot better. So I'm going to bring my second color in. I'm going to tighten that first one. And then for both of us who keep the same color and the color changes, chain 2. Alright, so here we go, up to chain 2. Now this row we will do front post and back post half double crochets. So to make our first front post, place your finger on the loop, yarn over, and you want to go on one side, go behind that first half double crochet and come up on the other side of it. Bring your yarn over and you're going to draw up a loop and then yarn through all 3. And that's your first front post half double crochet. Now we're going to do the back post. Okay, so yarn over, we're going to go behind and then come in front of that post. Pick up your loop and bring it back the way the hook came in. Yarn over and through the 3 loops on the hook. So you can see the front chains. Okay, let me see if I can bring it closer to you. Can you see that? Here's the front one and here's the back one. So we're going to do this alternating all the way around. So we're going to do a front post. So from the front, you're going to go on one side of the post, behind it, come out on the other side, whoops, yarn over and bring up a loop, yarn over and through all three. That was the front one. Let's do the back one. So finger on the loop, yarn over, we're going to come in from behind and go over that next post and go back to the back. Now we're going to bring the hook same way it came in, yarn over through all three. Okay, let's do it one more time. Of course I pulled some yarn out, now it wants to tangle up on me. Alrighty, okay, so let's do a front one. Finger on the loop, yarn over, we're going to go in between and behind. Oops. Draw up a loop through all three. Go behind. Okay, continue this all the way around, and I will tell you a little secret. The very last one will be a front post, because your chain, you will not do anything but a chain and a slip stitch, so that will be as if it was a back post. So your last one here should be a front post. So do that all the way around. Our next row we will change colors, for me back to the yellow, unless you want to keep the same color. So I hope you did well on this last row we've just done. You can see I have my front post as my last stitch, and then here's my chain 2. So we're going to change colors again this row. So we're going to go to the top of our chain 2. I'm going to insert the hook, tighten the coral that I have, and I'm going to pull up my yellow from the row below. And then I'm going to bring it through those 2 loops on the hook and tighten the coral again. Okay, and then chain 2. Now I want to tell you, we will do 2 more rows of this. I will do mine in yellow, and then my last row I will do in coral. So I'm going to show you what to do here, and you will need to do this row and 1 more row. Okay, so after we've done our chain 2, finger on the loop, yarn over, and this front post double crochet. Can you see how I went underneath it? I mean half double crochet. Okay, so I went underneath it. I'm going to draw up a loop, snug it up a little, and then through all 3 loops on the hook. We're doing our front post and back post half double crochet. You're going to find these next 2 rows are going to be very easy compared to that first one because they've already been designated. So here's my back post half double crochet. So I'm going to come in from behind, go over it, and I'm in the back, draw up a loop, and complete my half double crochet. And then here we go for the front post and the back post. Okay, so for those of you that are staying with the one color, we're going to do this row and this row. So we will have a total of 4 rows. So we have our first row along our chains, the second rows are my color change, third row, and then 1 more. When you get all 4 of these rows, the 2 more rows completed, you're going to slip stitch into the top, but I'll show you that, and then we're going to move on to the top rows of the panty. So I know you're excited. Keep on going, and I'll see you after 2 rows of front and back post half double crochets. So here I have completed those last 2 rows. So let's go ahead and finish this last row. Now I am not going to come to the top of the chain 2. I'm going to go to the top of the half double crochet, and I'm going to pull that over just a little bit and slip stitch, cut myself a little tail, and then pull it through. I'm going to take this end and weave it in. Okay, but you can do that on your own. I've showed you how to do that in part 1 and 2. So now we're going to take this and flip it over as before, weave in your other ends as well. So the ribbing, as you can see, pulls in. See how it's going this direction? So it kind of has like a little elastic effect. And especially with babies wearing diapers, this should fit over the top of their diaper and onto their skin nicely. So let me show you the difference in the size between, this is for 9 months and here's the newborn size. You can see with the 42 stitches that I have here compared to the 56, the little, looks like about a 2-inch difference there. Oops. So before I move on, I'm going to weave in all my ends, and I will be starting with yellow. Oh, for those that have the one color, continue to do as we did here. Go ahead and finish it off because we will start on this side of the chains. So as we bring our little smile in, you'll notice that the top is smaller than the chain area. That's what I mean about it having that little bit of elastic in it with the ribbing stitch. And some of the examples I would give is like if you had fingerless gloves and you had ribbing here, you'll notice how it fits snug here, but the same stitches will fit over your hand. So this is through my experience with crochet on how you can utilize just the yarn instead of bringing in additional materials. So what I'd like for you to do is to flip it upside down to where our chain side was, and we're going to start with a slip stitch right here where we stopped at. So we're going to start here with a slip stitch. And we're going to chain 3. These rows that we'll be starting now are going to be double crochets. 1, 2, 3 chains. Alright, so we're going to be doing something a little bit different than what you're used to. Most of the times you would pick up just the one part of the chain, but I want this to be solid, not to slip and slide. So we're going to go in between the stitches. Now in this section right here is where I wove in some of my tails. So if you did the same thing, you're going to find you're going to have extra yarn in this area. But in between all these stitches here, and I want you to count to make sure that you have the same number as the chains that you needed when you first started. So to bring up my little piece of paper again, mine was 56 chains, so I'm going to make sure that after my chain 3 I'll have 55 double crochets because the chain will be 56. Okay, so let me place that right here to remind you a little bit. So we're going to go on the same places where the chain is, but we're going to go in between the stitches here because we want to pick up some of the bulk. So to make a double crochet, same as if you were doing the half double crochet, except you're going to go through 2 and then go through 2. Okay, and then on to the next one, which will be on the other side of this post. Okay, you can see my weavings from before, which is okay. And then we're going to go in between these two stitches here. Once I get past those weavings, it'll be easier to place these stitches in. Here we are right here. So we're just going to go into the space right there between the two stitches. And we're going to place one double crochet in each one around. Now once you get all the way around, if you find that you're short one stitch, you can add it here. You can place 2 stitches, or if you found that you have too many stitches, you can also skip the space right here. Alright, so go ahead and do the amount of double crochets you need around for the chains that you have, remembering to count the chain 3 as 1. So go ahead and go all the way around, and I'll see you when you get there. So at the end of this row that we have here, we need to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3, and then chain 3. Okay, so what you have done here was the first row of the top rows. Now I drew out a little picture here. Okay, so we did the waist ribbing. That was 4 rows. Now we're in the top rows. This will go down from the waist to the hip area. So this is what we're going to do right here. Now in the top rows, I gave an estimate of how many rows that you will need to do. I ask that you please measure, if possible, to make sure that the height is correct for the child that you're making it for. We know that babies are born in different heights, from 19 inches up to 24 inches. So make sure that your height is correct as well. Let me give you another example. Now, of course, this is where I sewed in as a sample to show you where it would be on the video. So from here to here is the 4 rows. So this would be our waist area, and this would be our hip area right here. So make sure that the distance that you need is going to be correct. Like I said, the amounts that I gave here are optional depending on the height of the baby. So what I'd like for you to do now is to do however total rows that you needed. Remember, the one we just did was 1. So for me, I'm going to do a total of 6 rows. And then at the end of those 6 rows, I will start on the center. So go ahead and do however many rows you need, and stop with a slip stitch and chain 3, and then I'll see you and we'll start our centers. I have completed my 6 rows for the top. I slip stitched into the top of the chain 3, and I chained 3. So I'm ready to start on my centers, which will be of a decreasing row, so that it will go down to under their diaper area. So let's go back to our chart. You might want to pull out your stitch markers. So for our centers in this row right here, I put down what I used for the infant one, and then I have these estimates that would be what I feel is correct for the other sizes. Now I'm doing the 18-inch hip size, so I need 19 stitches. Okay, remember the chain 3 also counts as a stitch. So what I'm going to do is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and here's number 19. That will be my last double crochet. Okay, and as I go around, I want to pull up another stitch marker. The stitches that I need in between my centers so that I can create a leg is 9. Take note of the ones that you need for what size you're working with. Okay, so I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and here's number 9. So I'll place another stitch marker. Okay, now we're going to start on the back side or front side, whichever. It doesn't matter, these things are reversible. So I'm going to go back to the amount I needed for my center, which is 19. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and here's number 19 for me. Okay, and then the amount that I should have left is 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I know that my stitch count is correct. So go ahead and place your stitch markers in there. You're going to find this will help you a lot when we start this row. Alright, so I'm going to close this. So for our first side of the center, we're only going to be working from the first stitch marker to here. We're not working anything else. We're going to be working just this one center, and the other center will be exactly the same on the other side, but we're only doing this one here. Excuse me. So we're going to go ahead and do our double crochet in each stitch across until we get to this stitch marker. So go ahead and start your double crochets, and I'll meet you at the stitch marker. Go ahead and pause your video. Okay, so I'm coming up on my stitch marker, and yes, you do want to place a stitch in that last stitch. Okay, and then go ahead and take your stitch marker out. And we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. Okay, so we're only going to be working in this small section of the centers that you needed for that first row. So we're going to be starting and making our decreases. This first one you see here on the end is part of this chain right here. So we're going to skip this one right here. And here we're going to be doing double crochet 2 together. So in the next stitch, yarn over first, in the next stitch draw up a loop, yarn over and through 2, and then stop. Yarn over your hook through the second one, draw up a loop, through the 2 loops on your hook, you now have 3. You notice how your double crochets are half done. This will start our decrease. So go ahead and yarn over through all 3, and you'll see how instead of having extra chains here, you now have a decrease of 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll double crochet across. Now I would like for you to stop within the last few stitches of your row. So go ahead and go across, pause your video, and I'll show you how to finish this first row. At the end of the row, you'll notice you'll have 2 stitches left here. We're going to do another double crochet 2 together. So we're going to pick up, yarn over, and go through 2. Okay, so we have the 2 on the end there, and then all 3. And then chain 3 and turn your work. You'll start to see that it's already starting to come in. It's going to go draw more in. So now every row that you're going to do from now on until you have 7, 8 stitches left, you're going to be decreasing every row. 1 on one side, 1 on the other. Okay, now I wanted to show you about the newborn size. You'll notice here that I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows before I got to number 7. Well, actually 5 rows, and then the other row was, the last row was number 7 stitches. Okay, so that'll give you enough width to cover over the bulk of the diaper at that level. Okay, so go ahead and keep decreasing on each side. Pause your video. This will take a few minutes. Go at your pace. It's not a race. So pause your video and I'll see you then. Alright, so now I'm here and I have decreased a number of times. So here I am ready to start my 7 stitches across. And I will probably do 2 rows of 7 stitches. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and number 7. Okay, and then chain 3, and I would do my second row of 7. Here's 5, number 6, and number 7. Okay, so I've done 2 rows of number 7. I'm going to go ahead and cut my ends, pull it through, and on the other side I'm going to start with a slip stitch in my hook, and where my stitch marker is, I'm going to go to the next one over because that was the last stitch. Chain 3 and then start my center for the other side of these little panties. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we'll stop here on this stitch marker, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did on this side over here on this side. So go ahead and do that, and when you've completed, turn your video back on and we'll start show you how to finish it. So I have found that just 1 row of the 7 stitches for both is sufficient for the leg openings that we need. So, sorry to have confused you, but after you've done your decrease rows and you're down to 7 stitches, just do the 1 row of 7. So let's go ahead and stitch our row together. Let me show you how to do this. You want to bring the 2 together, and then we're just going to do a basic whip stitch where you're just going to go over and pick up the next stitch and then come back into the next stitch on the bottom side. So over and into one and into the other. I will do 2 passes on this to make sure that it doesn't separate. But I decided that sewing it up at the bottom was a lot nicer in appearance than it was having the slip stitch that I showed you on the newborn size. So once I got this one here, I'm going to go ahead and tie a square knot here on the other side. Okay, so now we have our 2 leg openings, and I'm just going to pass the yarn in through, so I have 2 yarns. Well, let's take it out. And then I'm going to do another whip stitch back to make sure that it's more solid. So go ahead and do that, and we will start on the ribbing for the leg closures. So this is what we have so far. Now the first row that we will be doing, I will be using the coral color because we're going to be doing a total of 3 rows, and I want the ribbing to be the same coloring as before. Now, we will do 2 rows of ribbing and 1 row of the single crochet and the chain 2 picot. So the first row will be considered a ribbing, and the second row is the ribbing, and then the third row is the picot. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start here at the chain, right here where our 9 stitches are straight and where we started our decrease. So let's go ahead and place a single crochet or slip stitch in here and chain 2. 1, 2. So we're going to go around making a half double crochet. They're going to be sporadic. So remember that what number you count going around the leg you need before you hit this this row right here that's at the bottom of the top row for the stitches that you have. Remember to count how many you place around. So I'm going to place 1 in the chain space, and then on 1 at the end of the row, and then I'm going to be skipping the actual stitch length, and I will put 1 at the end of each row. This will help pull it in and give it the gather, you know, the tightness that you need to go around the leg. You see how it pulls it in just a little? Now when I get down here to the bottom, I'll add 2 so that it's not such of a pull. Let's see, so here's the stitch, and at the top here's, okay, and I'm going to skip that chain, but right here at the end, I'll place my half double crochet. So right here, I'm going to be placing 2 stitches And at the other side I'm going to be placing 2 stitches. So 2 half double crochets in the same stitch, and then at the other side 2 half double crochets. This will be like at the end of the row. There's 1 and there's 2. So here I am. I'm going to skip the post and place it at the end of the row. I'm going to skip that chain, place it at the end of the row. I'm going to skip that chain at the end of the row. Okay, now here we are back at the body of the. Okay, so you can see here, here's what your original size, and this is what it has shrunk down to. Now this will stretch a little bit, but it's enough to be gathered around the size of the baby leg. So before you move on, a good thing to do, go back and count your stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then that chain 3 would make it 16. And then we have this right here. So here's, for me, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, okay, and here's 25. But I'm going to place 2 because you want the number to end in an even number. So I'm going to place 2 here. And then I'm going to pull up to the top, and I'm going to change my color. Don't cut the yarn if you're changing your color, because we'll be using it again. So I'm going to pull in my second color, and then I'm going to do the ribbing as I did on the waistband. Let's see, where's the yarn at? Here it is. Tighten your stitches before you move on. Okay, and chain 2. So as before, we're going to front post and back post. Okay, do that all the way around. Alright, so go ahead and pause your video. I'll meet you at the end of your row. So as I come up to the end of my row, I've got these 2 stitches left. Okay, we want to go to the top of that chain 2, and I'm going to change my color. Now the yellow I'm going to cut, and I'll weave that in. Chain 1. Okay, you can see how our leg opening will fit nicely. This is a single crochet and picot row. So chain 1, and in the same space, single crochet, and chain 2, and remember how we did our picot through the top, the chain, and the first part of the single crochet, and slip stitch through all 3. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 2 and complete your picot and repeat around. Okay, when you get to the end, slip stitch into the first single crochet and then weave in your ends. Go ahead and do the same thing for the other side and you will have completed your baby's panties. And I'll see you then. So here is our completed baby panties diaper cover. Here's one side and here's the other. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial and I hope to see you again in another tutorial. Before I leave, I will show you what they do look like on Elsa. So as I show you the full completed dress again of this part 3 video, let's show you how her panties fit. They look pretty good. And so this would obviously make a beautiful party dress for a child, or just a little dress to wear outside. Thank you so much for joining me in this video and in this 3-part series of making the squared yoke right here, the party dress, and the panties. I hope this was a very useful video for you. Please join me again for another crocheted video in the future. Bye-bye.